Trump just told NATO, stop buying Russian oil or I'm not sanctioning Russia. Yeah, you heard it right. The President of the United States is basically holding sanctions hostage unless NATO countries cut ties with Moscow first. Oh, and while we're at it, he wants NATO to slap 50 to 100% tariffs on China because apparently this is a good project. And Trump's a kid who refuses to do the homework unless everyone else is working harder than him. This is not just another rant on Truth Social. This is a big deal. Because if NATO doesn't comply, Trump says, quote, you are just wasting my time. That's the President of the United States talking about the deadliest war in Europe since World War II, like it's a business negotiation over a golf course deep. And this ultimatum, it could change the entire balance of the war in Ukraine. So here's the story. On September 13th, Trump posted a message to NATO countries saying he's ready to sanction Russia, but only if every NATO member completely stops buying oil from Moscow. Now, NATO has 32 member countries, and not all of them are on the same page. Turkey is the third largest buyer of Russian oil, right behind China and India. Hungary and Slovakia are also still importing, and Trump's calling this shocking. But here's the catch. Trump isn't just targeting Russia. He wants NATO to collectively hit China with tariffs up to 100%, because China has been the lifeline for Russia's economy. The logic is starve Russia's wallet by cutting off China. In Trump's words, if NATO does as I say, the war will end quickly. If not, well, according to him, everyone's wasting his time. And here's the scary part. He might not be entirely wrong. Energy sales are one of the biggest reasons Russia survived 3 years of sanctions and still keeps funding its war machine. Let's break down why this is such a massive dilemma for NATO. First, oil and gas are the lifeline of Europe's economy. Cutting Russian oil completely means countries like Hungary and Slovakia would have to overhaul their entire energy systems overnight. Second, NATO is not designed to make economic policy. It's a military alliance. So Trump is basically telling them, hey, your job isn't just tanks and troops anymore. Now it's also energy boycotts and trade wars. Third, this puts allies like Germany and France in a tough spot. They've already slashed Russian imports, but asking everyone to go cold turkey, that's not just politics, that's domestic chaos. And remember, NATO is always thrived on consensus. Trump knows that. By demanding all countries act together, he's setting the bar at an almost impossible height, which means he can turn around later and say, see, NATO failed again. Now let's talk about the other half of Trump's ultimatum, China. Trump wants NATO to slap tariffs of 50 to 100% on Chinese goods. Think about that. NATO is not a trade bloc. It's not the EU. It's not the WTO. It's a military alliance. But Trump wants to use it as an economic battering ram against Beijing. And why? Because China has become Russia's biggest economic partner. They buy Russian oil. They sell Russia electronics, semiconductors, even values goods that can help the war effort. Cutting that pipeline would hurt Russia badly. But here's the thing. China is also the largest trading partner for most NATO countries. Germany, heavily dependent on exports to China. France, same. Even the United States has deep economic ties. So asking NATO to collectively sanction China isn't just foreign policy. It's like asking countries to punch themselves in the face and then keep punching until Russia taps out. This is where Trump's style comes in. It's not making a nuanced diplomatic argument. It's making a business ultimatum. Cut off Russia, punish China, or don't expect America to lead. It's bold, it's aggressive, and it's risky. And while Trump is busy posting, NATO is already on edge. Last week, Poland and NATO forces shot down drones violating Polish airspace during Russia's biggest aerial barrage since the war began. Think about that. For the first time, NATO members fired shots connected to the war in Ukraine. That's not just escalation. That's brushing up against Article 5 territory. Romania also scrambled F-16s after a Russian drone entered its airspace. Both countries say these were preventive measures. These are NATO militaries directly confronting Russian hardware. So when Trump says NATO is not 100% committed, he's ignoring the fact that Poland and Romania are literally putting themselves on the front line. For them, this isn't a negotiation. This is survival. Let's zoom out. Has any of this brinkmanship brought peace closer? Honestly, no. Trump hosted Putin in Alaska last month. Yeah, you heard it right. Putin on American soil. Then he hosted Zelensky and European leaders in D.C. But despite the further ops, there's been no breakthrough. Russia still demands Ukraine give up the Donbass. Ukraine says absolutely not. Meanwhile, Russian bombs keep falling on Ukrainian cities. Trump wants to look like the deal maker who can end the war quickly. But wars don't end just because you threaten tariffs. Wars end when the underlying issues are resolved. And right now, Moscow wants Ukraine's territory. Kyiv wants to survive as a sovereign nation. No amount of oil embargoes or tariffs fixes that gap overnight. So here's the bigger picture. Trump's ultimatum to NATO isn't just about Russia. It's about reshaping the alliance into something it's never been before. A tool of American economic warfare. And the question is, will NATO follow his lead or fracture under the pressure? Because let's be real, if NATO can't agree, Trump gets to say, I tried, but they failed. And if NATO does agree, economies across Europe get slammed. China retaliates, and we might end up in a global trade war on top of a shooting war. That's the tightrope we are on right now, and the stakes couldn't be higher, because every drone it crosses into Poland or Romania brings us one step closer to direct NATO-Russia conflict, and every stalled negotiation pushes Ukraine closer to exhaustion. So where does this leave us? Trump is playing hardball with NATO, demanding maximum pressure on Russia and China. Some NATO countries are already stretched thin, others are hedging their bets, and all the while Ukraine is caught in the middle, still fighting, still bleeding, still waiting for a real path to peace. Trump says, "Do what I say and the war ends quickly." But history shows wars rarely end because of ultimatums. They end because leaders are willing to compromise, or because one side is defeated. Right now, neither Russia nor Ukraine is anywhere close to giving up. So the real question isn't whether Trump can push NATO into line. The question is, how far is he willing to go if they don't? Because in his own words, if not, you're just wasting my time. And when time is measured in lives lost, that's a chilling thing to say.